Meet Jack and Jill. Their spending has main character energy, but their accounts do not. Part of financial literacy and maturity is knowing when to log out. Remember, your account doesn't judge you, but it does keeps receipts. Don't be like Jack and Jill, stay off their hill. Follow us for more financial advice.
I get up.
Boy, I hungry.
Discount. Flash your ID and save big today.
Hello, good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome. It is what day? Thursday? It is Thursday. Welcome to the show. Oh my God, what's wrong with my lashes? Welcome to the show, guys. Welcome, 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 one and all to the show. It is another wonderful day, and it's so good to have all of you here. It's been a long day for me. As you can see, my lashes want to unstick, but you know, it's come to the end of the road for it. Good evening and welcome. It's good to have every single one of you joining me wherever you're locked in, wherever you're listening to the sound of my voice. This is Jael Joseph Live, and we have a special show again for you this week. We're joined by the Kalinago Chief Anette Sanford. So she'll be sitting in here with us for the next hour or so. We're going to be talking. Welcome to the show. It's good to have you here. It's good to be here. Come on down, guys. Come on down. Share the live. Tag a friend. Let someone know that we're about to get started. All right. We're about to start the show. I want to say special good evening to my sponsors who are on board with me for yet another season. I want to say special shout out to the National Cooperative Credit Union. I want to say thank you to Best Price, Cash and Carry, Fresh Market, and Perky's Pizza. We're back. We've been back since last week, but we've been easing ourselves into this. Let me tell you, next week we have one pack show. I don't know what Samaj is trying to do me. Samaj but we have a packed show coming up next week, and we're starting off with a bang. We have the chief, if those of you who are just coming in, who's on with us here today. Those of you who missed last week's show, I want to encourage you, before you have an opinion or ask questions that might not make sense, you should have looked at last week's show. But if you haven't checked out last week's show, I want to encourage you after this show to go back and check last week's show. It's on YouTube. You can just search Joel Paris, Jael Joseph Live. That's it. I mean, it's easy to find. Joel Paris, Jael Joseph Live, and you will be able to get to look at that show. It's available on YouTube, which is a lot easier for most people to search. You can find it on there in its entirety. You can sit, you can pause, you can look at it for as long as you want. You can rewind, fast forward, whatever you want to do, and get to know about the contents of last week's show. So we may make references to last week, and you might feel like you're in the dark if it's your very first time here. I encourage you to check back last week's show. It is a beautiful Thursday evening in Dominica. It's March 5th. March has started and it's well on its way. I want to say special good evening to the folks who have chimed in. Good evening to you, Miranda from New Jersey, locked in. Alexa says, I'm so pretty. Thank you, Alexa. Thank you. I'm feeling pretty for some strange reason. I'm looking for man, Alexa. I'm just joking. But thank you very much, Alexa. So we're gonna get the show on the road. We have a lot of questions that we want answered. A lot of you had questions last week. Some of the questions you had last week, we've pulled it out for this week, and we're gonna be hopefully getting some of the answers, and whatever we don't have answers to, because Annette is not God, right? She cannot answer of all questions. She's gonna do her best as chief, in the capacity as chief. And let me give you all advance notice. Don't come for Annette, because I'll come for you. Because not on my platform. The only person that's allowed to ask the questions, the punching questions, is me. St. Kitts is locked in. Good evening to you. Donna Hines, thank you very much for joining us here this evening. I'm trying to, oh, here it is. I'm trying to pull up the press release that went out that caused all of the debacle, we're calling it. I don't know if that's, we can call it that. But, we're going to get started. And I want to be able to kind of keep you guys up to speed. If you missed out, this is where the conversation started. So MO News posted last week, Kalinago Council announces proposed permit policy for non-Kalinagos visiting the Kalinago territory. And that was on the 22nd of February. And it reads as follows. The Kalinago Council is currently putting measures in place for the implementation of a new permit system for non-Kalinago individuals seeking to visit or stay within the Kalinago territory. This proposed measure is aimed at enhancing the protection of the community, its cultural heritage, and its ancestral lands. Under the proposed policy, non-Kalinago visitors will be required to obtain a permit from the Kalinago Council for the duration of their stay in the territory. This initiative is part of ongoing efforts to assert the rights and the responsibilities of Kalinago people as stewards of their land, and to ensure that all activities within the Kalinago territory align with the values, traditions, and the safety of the community. The Kalinago Council states this is not about exclusion, it's about protection, sovereignty, and sustainability. Our lands are sacred, and as we welcome respectful engagement, we must also ensure that our community's well-being, security, and environment are not compromised. The permit system, once finalized, will outline clear guidelines for entry, duration of stay, and permitted activities. It will also include provisions for educational research and collaborative initiatives that align with Kalinago cultural values and the Kalinago Act. All right, so that's to keep you guys up to speed. I want at this time welcome this has been an interview that has been long awaited, because this is my first interview with Anette Sanford as chief. We were supposed to have an interview since when she became chief, but she was so busy. Her schedule was so packed. She was booked and busy. I did not get to speak with her, and life is living. But it's good to have her joining me here this evening. I want to say good evening to Anette. Hello.
Hi, good evening, Jael. Mabrika, all your listeners, and to you.
Mavrika. It's good to have you.
Yeah. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm
looking forward to the conversation.
I love your background. It's giving Zen. It makes you want to sing Kumbaya, my lord. It's very peaceful. You have a nice, peaceful background.
The background is very important to me, because it has, behind me, you have all the former chiefs who actually led the Kalinago territory before. So I wanted some significance to the topic and to the conversation tonight. So that's why I'm here.
Wonderful. It's good to have you here. And this is the first time I can officially congratulate you online, because, we were supposed to have our interview when you became chief, but things did not work out. Our schedules did not align. So, I did congratulate you informally, through messages, but it's really good to have you here as the very first Kalinago female chief. So congratulations.
Thank you, thank you. And I too want to extend congratulations to you because I listened to your music, your new hit. And
Well,
yeah,
I'm an
congratulations on
artist.
that.
I'm a real artist. See, Annette, you ever see the light?
Boy.
Well, it's good to have you on here. And I read before you came on, I gave a little briefing on the press release that was received through MO News last, well, it's actually February 22nd. And before we get started into the conversation, for those who are new here, the very first time probably logging in onto my platform, I'd like you to introduce yourself, to the general public. Let us know who you are, what you do, and just give us a brief synopsis as to who you are.
So my name is Anette Sanford. My Kalinago name is Akuenani. It means light. And I am the Kalinago chief currently for the Kalinago peoples of Dominica. But when I travel, people tell me, Annette, you're not only the chief of the Kalinago people, you're the chief of all the indigenous people in the Caribbean. So when you speak, you represent every one of us. So tonight I say I'm the chief of the indigenous people of the Caribbean because we are the only indigenous community in the whole Caribbean archipelago. And I feel that we're at a point right now where, we have to embrace our other indigenous brothers and sisters across the region. And I'm very happy to be in that position. I've been Kalinago chief for just about 1 year. I came in August 2024, and I have 6 committed counselors who are working with me. And I believe that we have been doing quite a bit, very busy, like you said, and focused on improving the livelihoods of our Kalinago people.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you very much for this introduction. And to sort of start off, the purpose of this conversation is along the lines of the proposed permit policy for non-Kalinago visitors. Can you please explain to us in simple terms what is the proposed permit policy for non-Kalinago visitors?
Okay. So before I go into the discussion about the whole permit, I just want to give a little backdrop and maybe share with you, not maybe, I'm going to share with you a little story, just to bring context to what we're doing. If we recall long ago, when we go back to history, there was a call for emancipation of slavery at the time. And emancipation was given to people to be free. So the slaves were allowed to finally be free, which would have been something I believe that everybody would have embraced. But when we look at history, history reveals that many of the people at that time when they were given their freedom did not leave the plantation. Right, Jael? Am I right?
That's correct. And they were enslaved, not slaves.
They were enslaved.
Yes.
Yeah. So they chose to stay on the plantation and to just out of their own free will. And we may ask ourselves why. Why did they choose to stay? And I'm going to highlight 3 reasons. 1, they did not have any land. They didn't have any resources. They didn't have the capacity and the tools to fend for themselves. And so they felt that they had to stay somewhere where they could get all these resources to be able to build themselves and their family. And so for years, even after freedom was granted to them, they continued to live under these conditions because they really didn't have a choice. Mm-hmm. And so we come down now to the indigenous story where we see similarities in terms of the lands that indigenous people owned and the whole discussion of land rights for indigenous people. And so without land, sometimes freedom is just something written on paper. But how do we practice it as an indigenous people in these current times? Because yes, we may be free, but economically we may not be, right? Because land gives you that authority. And so the discussion of the permit Land gives you sovereignty. But again, if there's no structure to it, slowly it's going to disappear. And as indigenous leaders, I sit here and I say I stand on the shoulders of those before me, because the whole issue of regulating entry into the territory and who leaves the territory has been very popular discussions within the community for decades. It started with all our former chiefs. We do know and we're aware as indigenous people that there are some of the former chiefs who tried to implement it, but they did it in very minute ways, small ways. So we had Chief Jamadwa, who implemented it to a certain extent, where he focused on regional and international tourists who came to the reserve. At that time, it was called the reserve. And then we had Chief Joseph, who also implemented it to international tourists and regional tourists. And then we had more of a, I would say, Chief Charles Williams, who was a bit more on the radical side and proposed a toll. And if we recall, that in itself, he received a lot of backlash because of that proposition. We also, if we know our history well, may have heard of Chief Irving's Ogie. So at that time, they dubbed it Caribism, where they saw it fit, he and his council saw it fit at the time, to expel some people who had overstayed. And it grew to a point where the government got involved. And the government at that time was Eugenia Charles, who told them that, you know, you cannot have a state within a nation. There cannot be a nation within a nation. And so all the individuals who were working within the territory at that time, educating the Kalinago people about indigenous rights, they literally expelled them from the territory. And so that is why organizations such as Save the Children, at one time, they got them out of Dominica because they saw that these organizations were teaching the indigenous people about self-determination, the rights of indigenous people. And it was not going the right route, because to have ownership of your lands is to give you direction in terms of self-determination. How are you going to use your resources? How are you going to distribute resources within your community? And how are you going to structure it in a way that everybody within the community would be able to benefit? And so we also had a very important gentleman named C.T. Robinson, who was also expelled from the territory and sent out of Dominica because he too, from England at that time, advocated for indigenous rights. And even if he left, today many of the indigenous people have benefited from his contributions by what we call the Robinson's Trust, which still exists today. So a lot of our indigenous people write to this trust, and we're able to access grant funding. Because even after he left, he saw it fit to leave something where the indigenous people would be able to build themselves and develop themselves. So a lot of our indigenous people currently, many of them who have gone away to study, were able to get assistance from this trust. I'm just saying that I am not here trying to invent something. I'm not trying to be no Christopher Columbus, because Christopher Columbus came, he said he discovered islands that other people had discovered before him. I am literally building on the foundation that many of the former chiefs tried, but they did not succeed. And I would just say there's a new marshal in town with new people and a council who is willing to work with her. And therefore we are about not just talking, but delivering. And that is what leadership is about. You have to deliver, not only talk.
Why did you think?
Let's get into the permit.
Why did you think it didn't work then? Do you think it didn't work? Because you mentioned a few chiefs trying to implement this, and if I do say so myself, a few men trying to implement this. Why you think it didn't work then?
Well, prior to 2007, the whole discussion of indigenous rights was not fully recognized. Right now, in 2007, there were international laws which were put in place to direct and govern how indigenous people are treated and how indigenous people are operated. And our country, Dominica, ratified those laws. They adopted those laws. So it's compulsory now that we ourselves as Indigenous people get familiar with those laws, and then on these grounds we can stand and make demands for, our rights as Indigenous people. Also, I would say generally, I believe many of them did not have the foundation to stand on. Like today, I have the legal authority to stand on it because one, I have the Kalinago Act of 1978, and also the international laws, the United Nations Declarations on the Rights of Indigenous People, which can guide our actions and which can tell the leaders, hey, no, it's our right as Indigenous people to self-determine our future and to ensure that whatever we do, we create a better livelihood for future generations.
Okay, so I understand that. Now, before we get too deep into the permit, when people hear permit system, many are unsure as to what it actually means. So, what exactly would the policy require from someone? The policy that you're developing would require from someone visiting or even staying in the territory.
Okay, so first our policy is built on the Kalinago Act, so I will read from the Act first of all to just give concept to a lot of the people across Dominica who do not know about the Kalinago Act. The Kalinago Act is part of the laws of Dominica, and it was given to the Indigenous people in 1978 after Dominica got its independence. And it says in Section 49, the council shall have the right to prevent persons who do not normally reside in the territory from working in the territory or from occupying or cultivating lands in the territory in their own right. The council may prevent, that is 50, may prevent persons who have no right in the territory from entering and remaining in the territory. So basically, these are the laws. And what the policy really is doing is providing a deeper, more guidelines as to how we are going to do it, explain it a little more, and just put more structure and I would say more meat onto it so that it can now guide how the council operates. Okay? So, okay. Yeah. So the permit in itself was established to affirm and operationalize the governance authority of the Kalinago Council. And maybe some of these things I will explain a little later as we go deeper into the conversation. To protect and preserve Kalinago cultural heritage and sacred sites, safeguard environmental resources and communal lands, ensure respectful, structured, and sustainable engagement by non-Kalinago persons, and generate revenue for community development and cultural preservation. And we're hoping that we can roll it out in a phase basis because there's no way we'd be able to implement everything one time. So we will have to do it by phases. As like I said, some of the former chiefs have started it. They did it in small steps with the international and regional tourists. But for us, we will be maybe implementing a little more. But again, yes. Even you, Jael, I think you had experience where when you came to do your documentary, you had to seek permission from the council to do it. So it is a form of permit. You have to get permission to do it.
Yeah, and I sought permission not necessarily because there's an act in place, but because as somebody who studied Indigenous studies, there was a level of respect that comes with understanding Indigenous peoples, and to me that was and it's not just, I don't think it's out of respect for any community. I think you should ask for permission. Like you should ask, you can't just go filming somebody. You should ask them for permission. Like I see people doing this when people die on the side of the road in an accident. People just pull out their phones and they start filming. Like even that I feel is disrespectful, because you're filming somebody's family member who's just passed away. And like, so for me, I consider it respectful to respect the person's space, to respect, and so that the person can prepare. And even in our last conversation last week, I was explaining to the audience about Indian time. When you visit the territories within places like Canada, even in in New Zealand and all of these places, you request permission to come
Yep.
to visit. But even when you request permission and permission is granted, it's not even certain that you will get the interview that you're coming for, because they can simply say they don't feel like it. Right, when they get
Yeah.
there, it could be they don't feel like it because trauma. It could be because of spirituality at the time, whatever is going on in their life on that specific day. It could be any reason, and you as a non-indigenous person have to respect that. And sometimes I know I've known of times. Thankfully, when we did visit, we got through right away. But I've known of people who've had to extend their stay over periods of time in order to wait for the chief to be ready to see them, right? Even if they got permission initially. So I think we occupy or we operate in a space of Mosa Fesa Muevle, like I can do what I want, it's my country and whatnot. And sometimes we don't understand respect. Feel like we can just get what we want when we want it. So I understand that. My question is, how do you determine indigeneity? Like, how do you determine who's indigenous and who isn't in terms of permits and coming in? Because yes, I get the act. I understand everything in terms of what you're doing. It aligns with the act, and it also aligns with the indigenous rights. How do you determine? Because, and I asked this question purely as a descendant of of Kalinago. So my great grandmother was Kalinago, and Dominicans on a whole, a majority of us have Kalinago lineages or bloodlines or family members who are Kalinago. I have a lot of family who are Kalinago who still reside in the Kalinago territory and Good Hope. How do you go about determining permission?
Yeah. So I would have loved that we could have used genetics to determine that, but I think we lost the opportunity. We had a genetic doctor who came here to offer that to us, but for some reason, the government, because of the nature of the research, did not allow it to come through. And again, that's where we talk about self-determination. Getting to direct and do what you think is best for your people or your community. But the act itself outlines who is Kalinago. And I think if Dominicans are honest with themselves, it wouldn't be a difficult thing, because right now, even with the aid bank and how the aid bank operates, they only grant loans to persons with indigenous heritage. And in order to get access to these funds, they have to show proof of identity from the territory. And what the request is, they ask, do you live in the territory, or do you have a parent from the Kalinago territory? And the act itself makes it clear that if you were born in the territory, or at least have one parent as a Kalinago, and you have lawfully resided in the territory for over 12 years or more, you will be considered a Kalinago person, right? There are other indigenous.
So these two factors are two determining factors that stand alone or collectively, and it's going to guide my follow-up question. So you said there are two things. So for example, the aid bank is asking for you to prove that you're Kalinago. They're asking if you have a parent who who's resided and of the Kalinago territory, or
I
if
didn't say the aid bank.
no, you use an example. Sorry, like the aid bank has. Sorry, the act. Sorry, the act has states that if you've lived within the Kalinago territory and you have or you have a family member, a parent, sorry, who you're descendant of, who's lived in the Kalinago territory, then you can self-identify. Correct?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
what it says.
So
I didn't say that. That's what the act says.
That's what the act says. So that would lead to my follow-up question. There are people who are not necessarily indigenous appearing, so they don't look like Kalinago people, but they've lived in the Kalinago territory. And as a matter of fact, the act says that if you've lived, so if I decided before the permit policy was even instated that I wanted to move into the Kalinago territory and live there for 12 years, I would be considered Kalinago because I could self-determine and say that I am part of this and this is my communal space that I reside in. How does that affect the policy?
Not at all. I mean, we have people who have been married here and living happily here for years, and that is something that will always happen because we cannot dictate whoever you should fall in love with. So we are aware of that, and it's not going to change anything. But for future, for the people who are coming in, this will be one of the guiding means of being able to tell whether you are able to stay or not, or how long you are intended to stay. And
So essentially,
so the permit.
essentially, Annette, you're saying that if I fall in love with a Kalinago man after the permit is enforced, I mean, that's a very likeliness because I find Kalinago men quite attractive. If I were to fall in love with a Kalinago man and move to the Kalinago and want to move to the Kalinago territory, I would have to seek permission from the council. And the council can determine whether or not I'm given permission. Is that correct?
To live there. If you are married, then you will have some rights.
Okay.
It says that
Okay.
also in the act. If you're married, if you're coming, if you have family, then there should be nothing preventing you. So for us, the permit is going to be focused, like I said, on various groups. It's going to be focused on, first of all, we're focusing on the tourists, regional, international, and the tour operators, because honestly, the Kalinago territory don't benefit from the tourism dollar. The few people who gain from tourism, really, it's the one or two vendors on the side of the road. But how do we get anything from the tourism sector when it comes to tours who come to the Kalinago territory? So that will be one of the focus areas. We're also focusing on people coming in to do documentaries. It's already happening, but we're going to put it into structure. Documentaries, people who come in to vend, and persons who come in overnight. For example, once you're coming to the territory and you're going to be spending more than 24 hours within the community, it's our right to know that you are staying in the territory, where you are staying, how long you're going to be there for. Because at the end of the day, if anything happens, I believe the leaders of the community would have some kind of responsibility over whatever happens in the community. So these are the areas we're looking at. And like I said, it's not going to happen all at one time. We're going to roll it out in a phase-by-phase basis. And some people are wondering why now.
Yes, I was about to ask you. That was going to be my question. Why now?
Yeah. So this was a decision that we took in 2025, June 2025. Prior to that decision as a council, we did have numerous hamlet meetings. So my administration—
Can you share with me a little bit about the hamlet meetings? Because again, the why now would have led me to ask, because some people have said that they don't recall any discussions within the community. So I want to get a clear understanding as to how many meetings were held, where were they held, when were they held, if you could provide that information so that we are all clear on the same. Because again, when we spoke last week, one of the things that I expressed is that I felt the communication that came, the messaging within the communication that came out, it seemed like everything was done and ready and good to go. Although it says it is something that is in discussion, but the way it was presented, it appeared that this was an open and shut. We just letting y'all know that we're doing this. That's what it came across as, right? So I kind of, and I'm going to ask, and I'm going to keep it as simple, as stupid as possible, so that everybody's clear. So when we leave here tonight, it would be no more discussion. We're going into now how we can roll out, or if this is something that is going to be rolled out within the Kalinago territory. So tell me a little bit about the meetings, where they were held, when they were held, over what period of time, to give me an understanding, and the audience an understanding as to what sort of engagement that happened before the discussions of, or even finalization of, a possible policy permit.
Okay. So when we came in, one of the first things that my administration did was to put together a 5-year plan for the territory. We highlighted some of the things that we wanted to get done after our term is over. And one of the things that we promised to do is to be out every quarter, one, to share with the community the plans that we were working on, how far we were with them, the progress that we were making, and the upcoming plans for the community. So every time there is a call for a community meeting, this is what we focus on. We tell them what we have done, where we are now, and what we are going to do. For the past time, the last year, prior to us moving the resolution in the council, with the council, that we were going to have this permit, there were a series of community meetings in every community. There was not one hamlet that was neglected. The problem is, I believe, a number of indigenous people don't see the council as, I would say, operational or something that they can really depend on.
Why?
They see the chief, the position of the chief, as ceremonial. So people invite us to meetings, we dress pretty, we look good. But when it comes to the actual implementation, I guess it's due to prior experience with former administration, because not much is being accomplished. They misjudge our administration. But like I said, we're here to work. We don't have a lot of time. We have 5 years to do as much of what we need to do. And our intention really is to ensure that after we leave, the Kalinago territory is a better place than how we met it. That is the primary goal of everything we do. And everything that we do, we're doing it in a way that will be sustainable. So that whoever else comes in.
So on average, Annette, how many people would you say attended these meetings on average? If you could give a number, throw a number out there.
Our best community meetings were Sineku and Mahou River, Gullet River. In Sineku, the last meeting we had, I would say maybe about 50 people. Mahou River, I would say maybe about 30 people. The other community, we get about 20. Concord has a very small population, so maybe Concord 15. But there are people who come to these meetings, and I'm going to say clearly tonight that maybe it's a wake-up call for our community to realize that we each have a part to play in the development of our community. And when we call for community meetings, if you don't show up, it's not going to prevent us from doing the work that we need to do for our community. We're going to go ahead with the people who are interested in pushing the community forward, and we're going to use their feedback. So then the second set of meetings that we're going to have now, really, I'm hoping that more people will show up and show interest, and also offer the assistance in whatever way that we can. We also had a meeting with the diaspora online via Zoom. So we try to engage not only those within the community, but those abroad. And so I find it's very unfair that people, with their own agendas, would say, we know nothing about it. But the question is, how interested were you in attending any of the meetings that the council put forward? Because if we're having meetings in Sineku, Mahou River, Gullet River, Sensi, Bataka, Crevice River, Concord, if you are interested in development and you missed Sineku, then you can say, okay, well, I'll join them in Sensi because it's basically the same thing they're going to be repeating, So to have 8 meetings talking about the same thing and you're not present and then coming to complain, I don't think it's fair to us at all. So the encouragement I have tonight is indigenous people who are listening, take more interest into your community. You elected us to represent you. You can't just abandon the leaders to do everything for you. It has to be community effort. The Kalinago Council is a community-based organization. All the funding that we have received, basically over the year or so, has been raised by the council. It's only this year that the Prime Minister from his office granted funds to the Kalinago office in tune of $100,000. And that wasn't specific to the Kalinago territory. It was given to every council across the island. So it was nothing special to us. So in terms of the operation of the council, I must say in terms of raising revenue for the council and grant writing, within the past year or so, we were able to raise close to $500,000 just from writing grants and going to implement projects in the community. And some people may ask, why is doing this permit a priority right now? Why are you not focusing on other priority? And again, I ask, how do you know that we are not working on the other priorities if you don't make an effort to come to the meetings? Because we hear some people talk about L'Escalier. Oh, why are they not working on L'Escalier? There is a structure going up in L'Escalier Teche right now where a brand new tourist facility is being constructed to provide proper tour services to the people in the community. There are also free ongoing herbal gardens within the community that's going to be engaging various experiences with herbs, one on teas, one on baths, and then one on medicine. So we are doing a number of activities within our community raised by our own efforts. Mm-hmm. And Indigenous people have to realize that you don't have to depend on external sources so much, or try to say you need your government to do this and that. We have everything that we need within our own territory. We have all the resourceful people within our community to help us to develop our community. And we have to realize that, come together, work together to develop our community.
Thank you for sharing that, Annette. Another question I have along the lines of, okay, so you've confirmed that there were meetings held. What were some of the conversations that were taking place internally during these meetings, even before the press release came out? Was it something that the vast majority were in agreement to the permit, and what even some of their concerns, some of the concerns that were raised as to why that would lead you to believe that specific permit policy is very important and it's a necessity to the Kalinago territory?
And you're asking specific to my council or the community on a whole?
I want to know what sort of conversations were raised amongst the people, whether it's in the council or even the people in the community, because you say you had meetings across 8 hamlets, right? And obviously people not just sitting there just drinking everything like it's tea, right? There would have been discussions, there would have been concerns, there would have been. So what are some of the concerns, or what were some of the discussions that were had? If you could provide us with some information in terms of what was being discussed, that would even help you to push the permit policy forward, because obviously if they say no, you're not going to do it, but it's because they say yes, or people are in agreement. But what were some of the things that they were saying to be in agreement with what you, or even some of the concerns? Like I raised this last week with Jael, where even when I was doing, I'm very familiar with you guys when I did my master's, and some of the interviews that I had, one of the concerns were, children disappearing in the community, people coming in and telling people, giving them money and saying, your child can come on vacation and they'll come back, and children never coming back, or children coming back and coming back scarred, so there were things that I was exposed to, during that time. And I'm not saying that is one of the reasons. You obviously, it's your community, you've spoken to to the people within the 8 hamlets, you would know what some of the concerns were and why they would agree with you to feel that this permit is a necessity.
Okay, to be honest with you, firstly, at all our consultations, we had no negative feedback. In fact, there were a few comments who said, we applaud you for wanting to do this. However, Chief so-and-so tried, but it didn't work. However, we are hoping and we wish you success. So these were more of the feedback we get. We had absolutely no negative feedback at all. Our major concern is the land rights, our territorial land rights. There have been instances where people come in with loads of garbage, and you know how beautiful Horseback Ridge Road is. A very beautiful scenery and site, but we do have some very deep areas. And people tend to believe that it's a dump site. They would come, dump their tires, their garbage, their whole galvanized. And at one time, we thought it was indigenous, our own Kalinago people doing this. But there have been times when people caught other people from other communities doing it, coming all the way up to these areas to dump garbage. That was one of the areas. Then we are thinking of our land rights, because slowly what we are seeing is that indigenous people sometimes have difficulties with claiming even what is theirs. And a lot of people in Dominica don't know, or they may not know, that the Kalinago Council has a land title for the Kalinago territory, right? So it's our land. It was given to us long before Dominica got its independence.
1903.
Yes. So we have this land title, and the only government who gave us additional portion of land during that time, and I say the only government who thought perhaps of reparations, was the United Workers' Party government, who gave us an additional 85 acres of land. So our territory expanded to what we have now, to 3,700 acres. But besides that, we have received nothing else. And so many of our facilities given by international donors, for example, the Barona OT, currently is run by the government. In terms of accountability, we don't know the revenues generated from this facility. And these are questions that we have raised. We have written letters. We have tried to have meetings. Then we have this other, the issue with housing. Government stepping in, overstepping the boundaries with land dispute settlements, settling disputes for indigenous people without consultation with the Kalinago Council. Again, trying to have meetings, trying to have discussions, writing letters, no response. So there has to come a point in time when we draw the line and we say, hey, this is our land. It was given to the indigenous people, and we have a right to self-determine our future. We have a right to control all the resources within our community, and we have a right to distribute all the resources as we see fit to our people so that they can advance themselves. Because generally, I would say, even if we've had freedom, we are freed, Dominica is independent, we are still, as an indigenous people, not quite economically independent because of the whole communal land tenureship. And you ask me, do you not know the priorities of your community? Of course, everybody knows the priorities of the community. Even you, Jael, perhaps who were here for the few weeks doing your documentary, it was very quick to identify some of the major priority needs of the community. I mean, it's just obvious and glaring over all these years. But what have the leaders done about it? I mean, we're talking about reparations, and we now have our African brothers and sisters asking the colonial masters for reparations. But here they are in charge of a country that we once owned. How are they giving reparations to the indigenous people? And it was really disturbing to look at all the negative comments over the past few weeks, because it clearly says that there has to be some some inward introspection when it comes to racism. Because the Kalinago people, they are not a footnote to Dominica's history. We are foundation. Dominica was built on the history of the Kalinago people, and they have made valuable contributions to our country, culture, the environment, just name it. And they continue to do so even now. So highlighting all the inequalities, and again, many people highlighted the inequalities, so they know the struggles of the indigenous people. They know the priorities, right? They know that we need a financial institution. They know that there are many people who are still living in very poor conditions. But I mean, you can't put the blame on me. You should put the blame on the people who have kept us in this situation for such a very long time, and who were put in a position to assist us, but have been doing barely anything about it. So what do? We have to find a way to work around it and create opportunities for our own people. And so here we are as a council, trying to create a sustainable way where we would now have a foundation that any other chief coming in or any other council coming in would be able to have something to build on, something that the future generations can look to and say, okay, we have something. This former administration left something for us to start on. So it's just like my children and my husband always say it very well. We didn't have a very good life as children. I mean, growing up struggling. So are we going to allow our children to grow up in the same atmosphere and environment? No. We have to create opportunities for them, and we have to give them a head start. So if my husband is trying to get access to land on the outside and ensure that after he's gone, his children have a head start in life, that's the same way I look at it as a Kalinago chief. I built on those behind me. I have to ensure that I build for those coming in.
I want to go to the comments because people are asking a lot of questions and have a lot of comments. I have lots of questions myself, but I don't want the questions to get lost because there's a lot more people online than we're accustomed to. So I don't want to miss it, and I don't want people to say, "Oh, Jael passed my question straight" or whatnot. I want to bring up some comments. Devante, who's somebody who's been on this before, he says, the person says, self-identification is honestly weak in regards to the act. It needs to be more structured. A born Black cannot identify as Kalinago regardless of the period of stay in the land and benefit from their gains just because he can now self-identify as. That, to me, needs to be structured. What is your take on that?
I totally agree with that. So again, the whole idea of reviewing the Kalinago Act is something on our agenda. So we've had a legal team because, to be honest with you, I don't consider myself, like I tell everybody who come here, I'm not a bright person. So I try to surround myself with bright people. And we have a legal team working with us who have already put together recommendations for updating the act, and we do have a sample that we now have to meet as a council, go through each of the lines and the various parts of it in detail and discuss it before we actually send it out to our minister who would present it at cabinet. But yes, the act do have a lot of flaws. We realize that, and we are working on it.
Okay, thank you for that question or that concern raised by the viewer. As a follow-up question to that, I did have a question as it relates to putting together the policy or the shaping of the policy so far. Who has been involved in that in terms of shaping the policy? Has it been council members, legal advisors, community leaders? What is the makeup of the people who involved in shaping that policy so far?
I don't want to release names right now, but I do have, majority of the ideas came from the councillors. Some of the councillors, except one who was not with us at the time, she just got elected sometime in September. So she don't have a lot of knowledge as to most of what we're doing. Actually, she was a little flustered about all the negative comments that were coming out with the press release. But generally, all the other counselors gave their inputs, and we do have an educator. I would say he's an educator because he also worked on developing the Dominica State College at the time. So he's really helping us to put together a complete document that we can use to present.
Okay. And you'll be presenting this to the community, or would it be presented to cabinet? How exactly is it going to? And I'm saying this because there's another question that I probably want to bring up. So if you probably answer this, then we could probably move to that question in terms, because it will align, so to speak.
Yeah, so yes, we would have to bring it to the community first, because again, it's my community going to be most affected. We will share copies with the minister and our community, the minister directly responsible for community development, like we always do. And then, yes, he will decide if he want to take it up to cabinet and make the necessary recommendations. And of course, we'll release copies to the public so they would have an idea of what it entails. The focus of the press release released earlier this year, to me, honestly, was to start generating discussion among the general public, getting feedback. So minus the negative comments, we've been looking at the constructive criticism and seeing what we can use to really help develop the document and put guidelines in place to guide. So that's where we are right now. And yes, we will be having a lot of sharing, a lot of discussions going forward with the policy documents. So people who are concerned that, it's going to happen tomorrow, no, it's not going to happen tomorrow. From where I sit, it wouldn't happen until maybe the next 6 months or perhaps early January, because we are also trying to incorporate a lot of modern technology into it. I mean, in this day and age, we are using a lot of AI technology, a lot of advanced technology, and the Kalinago territory shouldn't be last. I mean, we were the last to get internet on the island, but I believe from where I sit now, I see the territory is going to be one of the most advanced communities in terms of technology. We've had discussions with persons directly engaged in technology, and they're excited about implementing some of the things that we're asking them to do. So for persons who ask whether there will be an online system, yes, there will be an online application form. And yes, so it's going to be exciting for our administration in terms of the implementation.
Everything East Coast as a question. Would you need permission from cabinet to implement this?
I would say no, but out of respect, I will. Like I said, we already have the laws that gives us the authority to do it. The only problem may be the fees associated to it, so that they may have to agree or critically look at and say yes, no. But in terms of if we just decided, hey, we're going to put we're going to start tomorrow, we can go ahead and do it, as long as perhaps we don't have any fees we're going to ask people to pay fees. But yeah.
So the permit essentially can come in a form of a document that you, or not necessarily a document. It could be a number, it could be whatever you decide that you receive, like almost like a visa stamp that you get that allows you in. But it doesn't necessarily mean that permit, there will be a monetary aspect attached to it. Is that what you're saying, or can you expand on that?
No, I am saying we are going to propose a monetary aspect, but then we will need our minister to critique it and say, okay, it's too much, or it's too little, or you can put that figure to it instead. I mean, out of the act, we can just go ahead and say, no, we don't want anybody to pay any money. We are going to start it right away. We have the authority to do that. But when it comes to asking for funds from the public, yes, we will have to have some consultation to do that.
All right. We have lots of questions. Some people are congratulating you, so I want to bring up those as well. So Ethan Africa is saying, I congratulate the Kalinago chief, the Kalinago people and the chief, and I for one stand with them, with the Kalinago people being the last group of indigenous people in the Caribbean. I believe this is going now will preserve the territory, the community for many generations to come. But I do hope with the implementation of the policy, it does not cause issues of segregation. Because being Kalinago is also being a Dominican, we should all come together as one. My 2 cents.
I want to comment on that because reading the comments, I saw a lot of racist comments in the past few days, and I really I don't want to laugh, but I just think it's really silly. One, having a permit doesn't cause racism. Racism is something that's embedded in your mind where you feel that you are better than somebody else. And I mean, the territory have been existing for decades, right? But with just the release of just this press release, you saw a lot of racist comments. With open borders, racists exist. So to say that permit is going to cause racism, it's ridiculous.
I think his comment is more.
There's always racism because there are people who always feel. No,
I think it's
people
more
always there will always be people who feel that they're better than others.
segregation though is slightly different in that respect than racism. I understand your point. There have been racist, and I agree with you. There have been racist comments, but I think Ethan's comment stems from segregation, meaning the Kalinago people separating themselves from others, and not necessarily we feeling, or the people of color or Black people feeling that they Kalinagos are feeling that they more or anything. It's like a matter of segregating. Like if you it's doesn't direct it's not directly, it can be derived as a result of racism, but in his comment, I don't think, my understanding of it is not to a point where racism is concerned, but more segregation. So now the Kalinago people are saying, we don't want to be, how does that work? We want to be apart from everybody else. You need a permit in order to come into our community. I think that's, and again, that's my understanding, and I could be wrong.
We're not saying that we want to be apart from everybody. We're saying that you have to respect our territorial land. That's all we're saying. So when you come to our area, there are certain guidelines and certain procedures that you would have to follow. You can't just walk to L'Escalier Teche and think it's like any other place in Dominica. It's one of our ceremonial sites. It's considered sacred. When you go to the Barona Oti, there are points that are considered sacred. So it has nothing to do with segregation. And then if you want to use that, if you want to use that, then you can say the same for the Caribbean people. I mean, we are all separated by land or by water, but we still are united Caribbean people with the same shared history. So I don't think that should be a problem. The problem is change oftentimes is not guided by logic. Change is often resisted because people are familiar with a certain way of doing things. And that is what I see happening. People are used to just entering the territory as they wish, living as they wish, going to wherever they want, treat the sites as they wish. And now it's going to be more structured, where we'd be able to have a better view of what's happening within our community. And also, the whole idea of the permit system is going to assist us in the area of gathering data, because as it stands now, the territory really have no data. We don't know how many people come into our territory per year. We don't know what sites is the most popular sites based on where they go when they visit. We don't know how long majority of people who come to the territory stay. And in this current era, data is gold. You need data to be able to upgrade your services and to to improve the little services that we have here. And I see it as an opportunity for us to develop ourselves, create employment, and to really provide a better product for whoever comes within our community.
Cheryl has a question. Is the territory tax exempt?
Not currently. Currently, we do pay tax. Everyone who works under the government pay tax. And I'm hoping that one day we may be tax exempt as a form of reparations.
Well, in indigenous communities in places like Canada, they are tax exempt from PST, so they don't pay provisional taxes. They pay goods and services taxes. So like they'll pay taxes on utilities and these things, but not utilities, food, and so on, but not provincial taxes. So house tax and all of these things, as well as because PST and GST is fused as one, it's one tax. And I think that would probably have to come with the makeup of how we are taxed here. So I know we are taxed 15%, but I'm not even sure as to how it's broken down in terms of what tax goes to where, or is it just 15% VAT is like value added tax on everything? So I'm not sure of how that is broken down. Probably we can have somebody one day come and explain to us that the taxation laws of Dominica, how we are taxed. But I know in Canada there's a percentage. I believe it's 7% for provincial. I believe it's 8% for goods and services, and I think the balance of it is HST. So it's separated, and Indigenous peoples, they have a tax exempt card. So when they go to places, they hand you their tax exempt card, and they'll hand it to you, and to remove the 7% provincial tax or 8%, whatever it is. I can't remember the amount right now, but you remove that specific tax from whatever they're taxed because they are the original peoples of the land. It's their land. So thank you for your question, Cheryl. But I believe, Annette, that is another conversation that can open up.
Yes, definitely.
In the future.
Yes, because currently we do pay tax. We do pay tax as a community. And then sometimes you ask, where does it go to? We don't see it within our community. The road, which was just developed, is from a loan that was taken from the World Bank. And then the house is from the World Bank. So how is it that our tax money is used within the community? Are we getting any returns at all? Right. So that's a very important conversation to have one day.
Someone is going back to the whole conversation, what Ethan brought up, and I think it's important to bring it back because thank you very much, Abu, for clarifying that. It's called prejudicial statements, not racism. Racism is an ideology when one race feels superior to another. There is systemic racism, and there are racists who hold views. Dominicans as a people are not racist. They can be considered prejudicial people, yes. Prejudge based on false narratives about the Kalinago people. Like Kalinago Wamial, Dem Kwai woman. These are stereotyping and prejudicial comments that are wrong, evil, and should be condemned in the strongest way possible. And that is what I wanted the clarity to be. So thank you. When I read it, I was like, that it was in my head, but it was just not coming out of my mouth. So thank you very much for that clarification. Because we essentially cannot be, because racism is more of a theoretical ideology and not necessarily something that we can practice, so to speak. So that's that. Let's get back into the question. Anna, do you need a break? Do you need a break for some water? Do you want to
yeah, let's take a break.
Let's take a short break. We're gonna come back. I'm gonna put Annette off the camera for now. We're gonna come back. We're having more conversations, pay some bills. Stay tuned. If you have any questions for Annette, I think she's she's more than happy to respond if she can respond within her within her capacity. And we'll keep this conversation going. We're gonna take a short break, pay some bills, because they're the ones who actually keep the lights on and the interneting. So I'm gonna take a short break from a word from our sponsors, and we'll come right back right after this. Stay tuned.
Meet Jack and Jill. Their spending has main character energy, but their accounts do not. Part of financial literacy and maturity is knowing when to log out. Remember, your account doesn't judge you, but it does keeps receipts. Don't be like Jack and Jill, stay off their hill. Follow us for more financial advice.
I get up.
Boy, I hungry.
Take advantage of Perky's Pizza's college student discount. Spend $10 to $50 and get 10% off, or spend $51 and up for a 15% discount. Flash your ID and save big today.
All right, we're back. At least I'm back. I saw some comments, and let me apologize. Somebody, people putting me in my place. I think I've gotten so comfortable with calling Annette, because I've spoken to Annette over so many years. So you are right. I should address her as Chief Annet, because that is what she is, because she's the chief. So I will address her accordingly. So let's welcome back to the program, Chief Annet. All right, so my apologies, Chief, for calling you Annette. It's just habit, force of habit, and respectfully, you are Chief, and I should respect.
Apology accepted.
I should respect that. All right, so the conversation continues. So walk us through the decision to release a public statement. Why was it important to announce the policy at this stage?
Like I said, Jael, the decision was taken in July of last year, and I was about to travel to Jamaica. So I noticed that there was a backlog of work. And so I sent it out to my clerk and I said, hey, this is an outstanding matter that we have to address, because we have upcoming meetings and we need to get the ball rolling. We have to get it done. I mean, it's almost our second year now. So yes, she went ahead. She informed the counselors, asked them for any feedback, and then it went out. And like I said, it met its objective because it started the discussion. And very interestingly, I'm very happy that for the past days and for the past week, a lot of people were engaging in the Kalinago history, talking about the Kalinago people and learning more about, our land rights, indigenous rights. And to me, that is very important.
Some critics say that the policy simply does not make sense. How do you explain the purpose of the policy to those who feel that way, even those Dominicans who say, well, how does that affect us? Like, that affects us. So you're telling me we cannot just come into the Kalinago territory like we are accustomed of, can you explain to those people who say that it doesn't make sense?
Okay, so like I outlined, the Kalinago territory was given to the indigenous people in 1903. I mean, it's bad to say that it was given, but that's the fact. That's what it came to. And that's all we have. I think Jael outlined very well that majority of Dominica was inherited by, our brothers and sisters, or African brothers and sisters, whom we assisted, in the times of slavery to get freedom. However, when Dominica got its independence, and there's a very important story that I think Dominica should know, because the premier at that time, when he went to the Queen to ask for independence, they sent him back and told him, what did the Kalinago chief say? Did he agree? And so they had to come back to get the signature of the chief in order for Dominica to get its independence. And maybe that's why also it's outlined in the act that the chief has to be treated as a member of parliament.
And you're leading me to the question, the next question. Continue.
So out of that respect, I guess they did the Kalinago Act, and they outlined laws and rules whereby the indigenous people would get some recognition for their contributions towards the independence and in their treatment going forward. Now, Dominica has got 100% of the land. We only have 0.4% of lands in Dominica currently that belong to us. That's all we have left. And having ownership of your land is very important. If you have land and you have no authority over it, it's like you have no freedom. And that's how it seemed for the past years, because we do have lands, but because of the lack of structure, we are unable to govern it as it ought to be governed. So we have external agencies coming in, implementing programs for us. And over the years, we've operated as an organization that receives a lot of charity. So we are like a charity organization. We depend on the charity of people coming in and giving X, Y, and Z to us. And so being able to say, this is our territory, this is our land, it's time that we govern it and we self-determine our future, it allows people to realize, and for those that do not know, for example, the discussions that have ensued within the past few weeks, people are finally getting to know, hey, the Kalinago people have a land title for this land. They have ownership over this land, and therefore they have a right to self-determine whatever happens on this land. And so it also puts government agencies, donor agencies on check to say, hey, you do need consent when you come into the territory to implement projects, to implement activities, or to just be within the community, because you are on territories that really belong to the indigenous people. And putting structure and governance measures into place will only make a place better. There's no way that just having things haphazardly happen within the community it's going to lead to chaos, as it has been happening within the past few months and decades. Because right now there's conflict as to, okay, the government is owning Barana Ote, who has full ownership over the housing sector within the territory. And these are not questions that we need to be asking at this point, especially when there are laws that govern the rights of indigenous people. We are supposed to say, okay, the Kalinago Chief and Council has full ownership over these lands. We can do X, Y, and Z. We can manage our property, but we would have to put structure in place, and we would have to do it in a sustainable way to provide at least some revenue for the people to build on. And you may have heard a number of the comments from the people highlighting the inequalities of the community. So it means that we are not on the equal playing field before the parts of Dominica. There are many indigenous people who are struggling and still going through a number of problems and issues because of the whole land tenureship issue. And unless something is done to create a better prospect for people, we're going to continue being that way. And putting this measure in place is going to help us generate some form of revenue that we can use to keep our community, to maintain it, and to prepare the younger children for a future that's brighter than ours. So I want the general public to understand that it needs to be done. And the Prime Minister mentioned it in his delivery sometime in Parliament last year. And when he mentioned the toll, he did not mention my name. He mentioned Charles Williams, because he said Charles Williams wanted to put a toll at one point, and that he thinks that he will just do it. I literally smiled when he said it, because I knew perhaps they had received our letters and there was some internal discussion about it. But again, we did not receive any response via letter, so we do not know what they spoke about. But just the mere fact that he mentioned it in Parliament gave me the indication that there perhaps was some discussion about receiving our letters or proposal and what we were going to do.
Okay. So, Annette, I'm glad you brought that up because some Chief Annet, some people might say that based on the trajectory that you're taking, that this essentially is the ultimate goal is for that the Kalinago territory to operate as a nation within a nation, self-governing as the act suggests. And that essentially, I see, will be a conflict where the government is concerned. And I say a conflict because there is a parliamentary representative that is voted in within your within the constituency that you also are chief of. Um, to I guess he looks after that as well. So he represents, so Honorable Kosi Fetchick represents your interests in Parliament. You brought up that based on the act, the Kalinago chief should be the one representing the Kalinago's interest in Parliament. How, in terms of the way you're moving, is that the direction in which you are trying to head to, in terms of ensuring that the laws that were instated, that were put together in the act, they are actually upheld? Or is it just Chief Annette trying to do what she can within her 5-year term for her community?
Yes, I think you misunderstood me. I did not say that the Act said that the chief should represent in Parliament. The Act highlights that the chief should be treated or paid as a member of Parliament. As to whether it's being done now, it's a big question mark.
Correct.
But yes, of course, it also has been a popular discussion within the community to have the chief represent the people in Parliament as opposed to having two leaders. However, I will let life, take its course and do whatever it wish. But my role today is basically focused on creating sustainable development for the community and strategically placing it at a point where we can now use our internal resources to be able to develop our community, because a lot of the outside support from states has not been as forthcoming as we would want it to be. So we have to look internally to be able to help ourselves. I just want to put on record that the current minister, Mr. Frederick, so far within the past few months, he has committed to have monthly meetings with us. He has been doing that. And the whole discussion about the permit, we had discussions about it today with him and his team, and he seemed to be in support of it. So it's not maybe about having two different, or having the chief represent, as long as you have a voice in Parliament that will represent the voice of the people, I think it can work. Because the problem in the past has been that our people having concerns, having issues within the community, and it's not being represented at Parliament, because most of the times the representative tend to be more politically biased than representing the people. And that has been a major concern. But as long as the minister will be the voice of the people in Parliament, I don't think there will be any issues with it. And so far, the past few weeks, we have been able
to you guys on, like both you and Honorable Kosi. Even in my time during, like, I see you guys have a shared interest where your people are concerned. And I think, all party politics aside, I've witnessed it, and I must commend you guys on your professionalism. Although you may have different views or different political affiliations, you've always both worked really well together, surprisingly. And and people should take a page from your book. I don't know how y'all do it, but it's always very surprising to see that you guys, I remember recalling even in my documentary, you saying, he agrees with a lot of things that I say, even if he doesn't always say it in Parliament, so obviously you guys know when to put down party and think of people. And I really want to commend the two of you, both of you, on that. And you I mean, rightfully you said, he's committed to assisting and liaising with you guys and getting making sure that the people are considered in all of this. We have a comment, very long one. It's going to take up the entire page, and probably I should read it from the side. Um, this is coming from Chen Laville. You see, I say this as someone who is part Kalinago, so this is not coming from a place of disrespect, but from a plain common sense. In a small country like ours, the last thing we should be promoting is division dressed up as policy. Charging locals and tourists a fee just to enter a community sounds less like progress and more like a very confused throwback to segregation politics. We cannot benefit from the national purse built largely by taxpayers across the country for roads, schools, healthcare, and public services, then turn around and act like people need a visa to pass through. At that point, I truly hope the entrance fee is enough to maintain the East Coast Road too, because the irony would be incredible. At a time when the world is already becoming more nationalist, local leadership should be finding ways to unify people, not create little borders in a nation this small as Dominica. We need ideas rooted in pride, yes, but also in pragmatism. Otherwise, all that is left is a silly proposal wrapped in serious language. What are your comments on this?
I would just say he's maybe, like he said, he's not fully indigenous, so he don't understand the importance of preserving our heritage and our lands. So I will forgive him for that.
So I can probably restructure the question.
1 minute, my computer is.
Okay.
Yeah, but
I could
regardless of that, where I
let me just restructure the
sit
question.
right now, from where I sit, next few years, and I say that with a lot of confidence.
Okay, I'm thinking along the lines of his statement he just made. A policy such as this, a permit policy, is the expectation is that, like all along you've been saying, this will be used to do things within the Kalinago territory, within the community, whether it's the health center. So are you saying, or is this going to be a thing where the permit, once there's a fee attached to it, that those fees will be used to fix, for example, the roads? And that there will be you will no longer depend on the government for things like that. You there with me, Annette? Chief Annet, you there with me?
As the council operates, the way it operates right now, everything that yes. Can you hear
Yes.
me?
You're breaking up for a little bit.
Not sure. Yeah.
Okay, I can hear you now.
Is it better now?
Yes.
It's breaking.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think there's a glitch somewhere with the internet.
Okay, you can continue now.
Yeah, the raised will be used for community. No, it's breaking up.
Go ahead, Chief.
I wonder if it's my internet service.
Go ahead. We're hearing you. We're hearing you. There's a bit of a delay, but we're hearing.
Okay. So the funds will be used. Okay. So the funds will be reinvested, of course, back into the community. All the various activities within the community, or fundraisers, grant fundings that we receive goes back into the community. So whether it be for education, culture, we will structure it in such a way that a percentage will go to each sector. But primarily, our main focus would be to raise enough funds to start a financial institution.
Okay.
Because that is one of our major need right now within the community. We will be focusing on it towards a financial institution.
And I recall,
I noticed the internet is giving some issues.
Yeah, there's a lag. There's a bit of a lag. There's a bit of a lag.
Yeah, it's bad.
Okay, so one of the things that I recall when you were campaigning to become chief, one of the things that you really wanted to implement was a financial institution. I think that was like the top of the list, was a financial institution within your community. For those who don't know or not sure or probably wondering, why is that important to you? Because somebody might say, well, we have National Bank, we have credit union everywhere, we have Republic Bank. Like, why is it necessary for, because people might still not understand. If you can explain why it's important to you and your people to have a financial institution?
The Kalinago territory lands are communal lands, which means that our people do not have individual land titles. And as a result, it's very difficult for them to go to an institution, a financial institution, to get access to credit, like loans to send their children to school, buy a vehicle, or even to get a mortgage to build a house. For years, this has kept the community back, especially our professionals. So we have seen professionals retire and unable to even, build themselves a home. So these are some of the challenges that it poses. The idea of having a financial institution within the territory is very important because of the structure of how the lands are. We have to find ways whereby they can use the lands, and then if they're unable to meet the commitments, this land will be confiscated not by an outside bank, but by the financial institution run by the Kalinago Council and the community. So in that way, we don't get to lose the land to anybody on the outside, but it stays within our community, and then we can then resell to another person within the community. That's the arrangement I have in my mind, and that is the thinking of how we can make it happen, by getting seed funding to start it off, and then put the structure in place whereby our people would be able to get access to credit from us within the territory. The KDF, as it stands now, as you know, the government started the Kalinago Development Fund. It still has a lot of setbacks to many of our people. So we see very few people who work as professionals get access to it, but 90% of the indigenous people who do not have that advantage cannot get access to credit, even if they want to, or even if we feel that they may be able to pay and meet their commitments. So wanted to, and so there has to be another way, another means whereby we can also give everybody an opportunity to get access to credit.
Thank you for explaining that, Chief Annet. Destiny had a comment or a question, I believe. So the national tax money will no longer be used to surface your roads, pay for public schools, for you and your public health care, etc. Just trying to understand clearly. So it's a question, comment, if you can clarify.
Well, like I said, a lot of the funding from tax, we don't see it in the territory. For example, within the past few years, most of the rehabilitation activities, for example, on our infrastructure has been through donors, grant donors, so not per se tax from the government. We haven't seen much of the tax returns. So to say that, okay, you will not get your roads fixed, X, Y, and Z, I don't think it applies to us very much, because very of that money is coming in anyway. So it really it means nothing to me, because we, within the past year, the Salibia Mission Project spent over 15,000 US to fix the Salibia Health Facility. And these were funds raised again from the IMF, with the government tax money to do it. I mean, it would be good if they do it, but as it stands now, we don't really see the benefits of tax monies being used in our community.
Okay. I'm hoping that we get some more questions instead of comments, because a lot of people are raising a lot of comments, and comments that some I feel like are just rooted in your own personal agendas. So please, if you have a question that is directly about the policy, any concerns you have, I've tried my best to put myself in the position of an outsider as well as an insider, in terms of asking questions. I do have about 3 more questions that I would like to ask. And obviously, if the chief answers within one of the questions, then we'll call this a wrap. I encourage you to ask questions that are strictly directed to the permit policy that is currently on the table. Beyond this policy, are there any other priorities you currently have on your agenda as Kalinago chief? Because you mentioned the financial institution, which is almost directly connected. But besides that, are there any other initiatives that you are hoping to implement during your term?
Yes, we have the upgrading of our office. As you know, we do not have an office space. Ours was destroyed after Hurricane Maria, and it has been in a dilapidated state since. So that is one of the areas that we're working on. We're also hoping to at least be able to see all our tourist facilities within the community upgraded and up and running. We also want to see more of our farmers engage in agriculture, and more so adding more value to their products. So for those of you who have been following us, we have been engaging in our farmers going back to the farms, planting cassava, because like maybe 5 farmers planting cassava in the territory, and we have 2 cassava factories. They would have to go out of the territory to get cassava. So within the next few months, we're going to have more than 20 acres of land producing cassava, which I think is a good step in the right direction. We also have a focus on planting more of our lauma, which we use for making our craft. Some of our craft vendors have to go again out of the territory to get a lot of these things. So the lauma, the castor seed, the oils that we produce here produce a lot of the plants, and then propagate them, plant them, so then we can gain from the fruits that it makes. And we are then going to assist in doing a lot more agro-processing, so helping our women, helping our farmers to add value to the product. So there are bigger objectives, like, again, like I mentioned, the technology part of it. So we want to see our community have more advanced technology, computers in the room, children being able to, maybe have a theater in the community where children can come see movies, recreation for the youth. And a lot of our sites focus a lot more on the ecotourism and the experience that we can give to tourists, as opposed to just having a site. So developing experiences is key for us. So when you visit the L'Escalier, you not only get to just walk around, you get to taste some of the teas from the herbs, you get to talk to a farmer, you get to walk down and maybe engage in some rock fishing. These are some of the kinds of things that we're looking forward to. When you go to the Barana Ote, maybe you can get a canoe and move to Sineku. So getting more engaged in the culture itself, developing our culture, focusing on our schools, having our children learn more of the traditions, the culture, being more proud of who they are as Indigenous people. And that has been quite a bit of our focus within the past year and so, because we notice that many of our children are so immersed in the traditions, the American culture, or the culture from the outside. Some of them are afraid to wear their traditional outfits. So they don't want to do the traditional dances. And so we have to get back to teach them and train them to be proud of these traditions, these cultures, and to re-educate them on who their forefathers were, what we engage in, what are some of the things that makes us who we are as resilient people, So these are a few of the things that we're hoping to do. So we're focusing on just to review the infrastructure development, to include our Kalinago Council office and all the sites that need upgrading. A focus on agriculture and adding value to it. A focus on culture, upgrading our curriculum, developing pride and dignity amongst our students, and of course, the financial center, which I think is doable, because from where I sit, the financial center, a facility will happen before our term is up, because we are already in discussions with donors who are willing to assist. We had discussion with a first donor, but the number of funds that they're willing to give will not be sufficient for at least 2 years of employment for a manager and a cashier. So we have to go back to the table and renegotiate to get enough to at least pay for a cashier and a manager of that facility for 2 years. Because when you start off this institution, you don't start getting results until after 2 years. So that's where we are. I think so far as a council, we have been very much engaged in what we're doing, focused, and we are plan driven. We're about delivering, like I said, to the community. And so far we are doing very well. I have absolutely no doubt that we will accomplish a lot of our objectives before our term is up.
I have a few questions that came in through the chat. So Cheryl McIntyre said, Chief has legitimate concerns and is clearly very intelligent. And as she said, she surrounds herself with intelligent people as well. Hopefully the solution proposed advances the community and not retard it. Can't there be solutions to land ownership, revenue generation, cultural preservation, etc., without a proposal which appears to be isolating the community from the rest of Dominica? That's one part of the question. The second part is, was there an effort for a round table with the current administration to discuss solutions other than what sounds to be an FYI to them? That's the question.
Okay. Yeah, so can there be another way to do it? Perhaps there can be another way, but it hasn't been done since the territory was established. So maybe we are trying a different route, because apparently what has been happening within the past years and generations since the territory existed is not happening. So right now we are actually taking it into our own hands to see what we can do. Have I tried to engage? Yes, I have. We have written to every department that affect us in some way. We've tried to have meetings with all of the departments that we have issues and concerns with. Have they responded? Some of them have, some of them haven't. We had meetings with, like I said, my parliamentary representative, who is committed to meeting with us every month. We've had meetings with the Ministry of Health. So we had a round the table discussion with all their teams, and we again expressed a lot of concerns over some things that were happening, to include the management of our facility in Salibia, where currently The former chief, Joseph, had a lease agreement with them to lease the facility for $1 per year. The contract was up in 2010, and in 2026, this contract hasn't been renewed. So when I came in, I've reached out numerous times. Like I said, I had the discussion with them initially, then wrote numerous follow-up letters, had lawyers draft up a legal lease agreement, which we sent to them, and we haven't had any positive response since. So they are really and truly operating illegally within the facility. And, if I am supposed to step up right now and say, hey, we are no longer allowing you to use the facility because you are not, you're not renewing the contract, everybody's going to say, okay, Annette, you are a difficult person, you're a bad person, you should not do that. But then there's an agreement. You agreed to pay a certain amount to use the facility, and if you're not meeting the agreement, then there's supposed to be some action taken. So we have tried to reach out.
Right?
We have tried to reach out. We have tried to reach out to housing also in numerous occasions. The most recent letter we received from them, said that they're not willing to have a meeting with us, and they're referring us to our minister. And from what I'm seeing, the minister cannot address the concerns that we have because he's not responsible for housing. And I'm not going to hold the Minister of Environment accountable for housing projects within the territory. We must have a sit down with the minister. And they're not willing to have meetings. So the Prime Minister, when we met him at the council meeting, I did stand and I did voice some of the concerns and issues that we had as well. So he is aware of some of the concerns we have. And we've been speaking, and I believe the indigenous people have been speaking for a long, long time. As to whether their voices are being heard is the question I need to ask. Because you cannot tell me that the territory has been existing for decades, and all of a sudden, can we do things a different way? Can we do that a different way? When apparently it wasn't working. Because if it could have been done, maybe it would have been done. I'm inheriting a territory right now which has basically very little to build upon. So I have to find ways to build the territory. And there are other policies that we are going to implement within the community to include household fees from the community. These are some of the things that we look at. The community members who are employed and working have to find ways to pay household fees, and these are conversations that we're going to have with them. So there are a lot of other things that we're going to do. And we had initial discussions with them about it, but the implementation part of it, again, we need to go there and have more solid conversations about it.
Thank you, Chief Annet. Someone says, are tourists going to be charged more than locals for the permit? I'm going to give you this whole spiel of what they're asking because you could probably answer it in one. Is it only fair as Dominicans do pay taxes already? Are the permits valid for 24 hours, for example, or different tiers depending on duration? I know a lot of the questions that I'm asking now you've already answered because some of it is it's still a work in progress. I have Kalinagos also allowed to pay the fee if there's a fee, only if only full Kalinagos are given free access. Will the Kalinago borders be monitored 24/7 in order to ensure it's proper execution of this permit system? And to add on to that person's questions, another person had, how would that affect people transversing, for example, moving from Casabers to Marigot for work on a daily basis? How would they be affected if a permit is implemented?
Yes, so for persons passing through, I think what we're thinking of doing is giving them a pass. So you get a pass, you pass through and you leave. But the permit will apply to anyone coming in, like I said, for the reasons that I listed. If you're coming on a tour, if you're an international tourist, you're a regional tourist, you come in for more than 24 hours. So if you're just a local Dominican passing through, you will not necessarily need a permit. You'll need a pass. So you pass from one end, you go to the other. As to whether the entrance is going to be fully covered, yes, of course. For proper monitoring, we will have to have those entrances fully monitored. And that, like I said, that's the reason for engaging the technology aspect of it. So we will be having technology involved at the entrance sites of the territory, as well as people.
All right. People are talking, are commenting, giving a lot of comments. What upcoming initiatives you did speak on those, on the upcoming initiatives that can be applicable to the wider public. My final question, Annette, or Chief Annet, sorry. What message would you like to send to the people of the Kalinago territory and to Dominicans across the country about the future that you envision for your people?
Okay, so as Kalinago Chief, where I sit right now, I believe that the Afro-Dominicans and the indigenous people have a rich history together. I mean, we have been brothers and sisters for a very long time, and I want them to understand that the permit system is not going to prevent movement at all. It's basically allowing you to come into a space that, you know, you have to treat differently with a little more respect, and the individuals in there have a little more respect for them. For the general public, international, regional persons listening, for those of you who have been supporting the work within the territory, I want to thank you very much. It has really been a good help. I know that there have been persons who constantly supporting me almost every day. For the persons who do it, you know, pro bono, it is going a long way. And I want to encourage us to value our indigenous people. Like I mentioned before, our indigenous people contributed a lot to the Caribbean on a whole, the rich history that the Caribbean has. And we have to appreciate and value them and not see them as people to denigrate and criticize. But we should, just as we value our heroes, we should value our indigenous people. There are indigenous people in other Caribbean regions, like in St. Vincent, in Suriname, who are still struggling to have their governments recognize them as indigenous people. And I'm reaching out also to the people who live within their countries. I'm calling upon them to at least recognize them and appreciate these people and give them the recognition that they deserve. For the indigenous people in Suriname, for example, still fighting for their land rights, still trying to say, hey, I need ownership over my lands. I think it's only fair that these people be granted a portion of their lands at least, and to give them the full ownership to self in the future, and to give them the opportunity to pave a way for themselves. And I just want to encourage my Kalinago people to be proud of who you are. Sometimes you will do things that may not be in line with what people expect, but if it's good for your community, come on board and support it. Because we may not see the benefits now, but in the future, it's our children that's going to benefit from it and our community on a whole. So come to the meetings, get engaged, participate, and be supportive of your community leaders.
Thank you, Chief Annet.
Before
we head out, Adicia Burton, who is the former Queen and Kalinago Queen, Miss Dominica. She's been in the chat, she's been commenting, and she's been there cheering you on and in support of you and what you're doing. And I just wanted to read one of her comments. She says, "Good night, Chief. Excellent interview. For those who still have questions, you can replay the live after it's completed. From what I've seen, the same questions are being asked over and over again, some of which have been answered already. She says, thank you to me for giving the Kalinago Chief an opportunity to speak on my platform. You're most welcome, Adicia. And she's right, some of the questions, because I get a question and I'm like about to ask it, and then I realize, oh, it's been answered already. So I encourage you to listen, listen to understand and not to respond. Listen to, I think that should be the message. Listen to understand, because sometimes we listen to respond. And before she finish ask a question, I see another question coming up about very same thing that she just responded to. And in monitoring the chat, sometimes it becomes redundant. So listen to understand and not to respond. So understand what she's saying and understand what it is. Understand that this policy is not yet it's not completed. You guys are still in the talks. So all of those who felt that it is the final stage has been reached and it's ready to be put out, that is not the case. There is still consultations with communities. There's still engagement amongst the councils. There's still engagement with the parliamentary representative as well. And once a final document is completed, it will be shared, but shared not for you to say you cannot, but shared to tell you it's happening. Right, Chief Anna. It will not be shared to say, well,
that's right.
let's think about it still. It will be shared to say, pack your bags and leave, or make sure you apply for your permit before you come in. Chief Annet, any final words before we wrap up here this evening?
I just want to thank you for, this opportunity to engage with your listeners. And I'm hoping to be on other platforms as well to share with the other listeners across Dominica. So you can follow us, follow our engagements in the community, and always feel free to ask. And it's for those people concerned about, not being able to come and see their Kalinago man or their Kalinago woman, have no worries.
You're able to make
it's not going to prevent
arrangements.
you from coming to get your bark five at all.
So you have to so in other words, Chief Annet, I can send in my request and say, I really have a boo in the Kalinago territory, and he can confirm that we are boos. I need a longer permit. My permit needs to last longer than 24 hours. That's a nice way to wrap it up. That's a nice way to wrap it. People often think you're so serious. They don't know you have kicks, too. They have no clue how much kicks you have. But I will be applying for my permit to come and check my boo once he becomes available. Thank you very much, Chief Annet, and thank you very much for your time. Have a good night.
Take care. Bye-bye.
And that was it, guys. It's a wrap here. I hope you guys had all your questions answered. I hope you feel like you've gotten a clear understanding on the permit policy that will be implemented by the Kalinago territory. It will be implemented. Like the chief said, there's still consultations, there's still discussions. There are discussions with the communities, discussions with the council, there's discussions also with the parliamentary representative. They have a standing meeting with the parliamentary representative. They're acting in the best interest of their community. And at the end of all of the consultations, a policy will be drafted will be completed to be shared with the general public, at which time you would need a permit to come into the Kalinago territory. We have to respectfully abide by it. The act is there for a reason. The act states that they have a right to decide who can come in and who can leave. And in as much as we may have our own ideas, our own ideologies, or we may resent the fact that we might say, oh, who do they think they are, and so on. It is in the Constitution, it's in the Act, and they have a right to this. And I want to let all of you know again, if you've missed last week's consultation with the lawyer who appeared on the show, Joel Paris, you can go back and listen. If this is your first time coming on here, you can go back and listen to his discussion in its entirety, and then you can come back on here and you can listen to this one. It's available on YouTube. This one will be on YouTube as Anette Sanford, Chief Anette Sanford, Anette Sanford, Kalinago Chief, Jael Joseph Live. The other one will be Joel Paris, Jael Joseph Live. You can go on YouTube and you can find the entire content of these interviews. I want to say thank you very much to the Chief for making time out of her schedule. You know, she was busy. She was recently in Jamaica, she expressed, and she made time to come on here. And thank you to all those of you who participated, those of you who asked questions, and not necessarily ask questions because you were trying to dig poo-poo, but ask questions because you genuinely wanted to understand what is all behind all the talks of the permit and the permit policy that will be implemented in the Kalinago territory. That's my time, guys. This is it for tonight. This is the end of the show. I want to say thank you to my sponsors, the National Cooperative Credit Union. Thank you very much for your support. Thank you to Best Price, Cash and Carry, Fresh Market, and Perky's Pizza for their support. Thanks to my producer, Samaj, for ensuring that this interview happened tonight. Because let me tell you, my schedule was so crazy, and Samaj is like, it's happening. I want to say thank you very much to all those of you who shared the live, who tagged, and who wanted to know genuinely, who wanted to be informed about what's going on within the Kalinago territory. That's my time for the night. I'm saying good night. Until another time, goodbye.